Hey everybody, welcome to Ask the Anabolic Doc, starring Dr. Thomas O'Connor, brought to you by his websites, metabolicdoc.com and anabolicdoc.com, both of which you can get a copy of his book, America on Steroids, A Time to Heal, also available on Amazon. How are you today, sir?
What's up, Ron? Excellent, sir. It's a beautiful day up here in Connecticut.
Yeah, that's right. It's actually not too bad here in Boston either. So you did another video. This one wasn't so much a drug profile video as it was a condition that a lot of bodybuilders are familiar with, unfortunately. Deca dick. So it's such a paradox because we always associate, at least typically, steroids with making you this virile, sexual Tyrannosaurus Rex. And this is a steroid that has a reputation for giving you erectile dysfunction, which is insane. Now, your video went into the science in detail. You broke down 3 main reasons for Deca dick, but I guess I'll have to ask you to repeat it dumb it down for like the bro science guys here like me. What is the main reason this one particular steroid has such an adverse effect on not so much libido, I don't think, but the actual mechanics, the erection issues?
So it's amazing, isn't it? And I researched this, and I talked to all of my gurus, and I went online, I put it together. It's really 3 things, though. It's never just one thing. It's essentially decaderoblin it's a nandrolone derivative, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to look at the basis of what this molecule is. There's testosterone derivatives, nandrolone, there's the NOR19 drugs, and then DHT drugs. Isn't it incredible?
Yeah, there's chemistry to it.
and yeah, so it's chemistry. And if you I'm looking around for my Llewellyn's book. Bill Llewellyn is just he's the guy that really brought us this amazing encyclopedia with the pictures in the back of all these drugs. And there's actually a history of there's probably hundreds more of just little known anabolic steroids where they've tweaked these different rings of testosterone in the beginning, and they just tried all sorts of permutations and combinations. But in the end, you had these basic structural changes or rings or molecules that end up sticking with us, and those are those 30 main steroids that we have today. Yeah. So that nandrolone ring, that nandrolone compound, where they change, that's the compound that when they tweak it, you get decaderoblin and you get the other form. You know the other form? I'm going to pick you out. What's the other decaderoblin?
We got regular Deca, and then right now a lot of people are into the fast-acting version, NPP, nandrolone phenylpropionate. That's
right. I just had to tweak you out, pimp you out on that because I knew you would know that.
Never used it.
You're a good bro scientist, and this wasn't pre-planned. So that ring itself, that parent compound, when I did that whole explanation and I kind of lift up to the clouds, it's not so complicated. A good biochemist is going to be like, this is straightforward, easy. But the compounds itself, they're changing, right? Because your body, like pro-hormones, right? Your body you take a medicine, it goes through your liver and your body and starts to change into other compounds as it's breaking down, right? Pro-hormones, that was that whole trick 20 years ago where you take a pro compound and your body cleaves it, and it makes
it to steroids inside your body.
Yeah, so this is like this whole game. So this happens in your body, in your liver, mainly with this drug, but it's not liver toxic. It just processes it there, but it's not toxic like the other oral agents, right? With those 17 alpha alkylated, which when you really get into the whole chemistry of this, it kind of flows, but it's definitely a whole study on itself. That's why doctors don't know it, and bro science guys, they're really smart on it, and they're also using it themselves and experimenting. Right. So in the end, it's that compound, that nandrolone compound, that is less androgenic than testosterone. So you're putting it into your brain, in your body. It's going in, it crosses the blood-brain barrier. Now, when you put testosterone into your body, it's both shutting down you at the same time, but it's also stimulating your brain. This drug shuts you down, but there's no stimulation. So because nandrolone, that nandrolone compound or compounds, there's the first compound, then there's the metabolite, which it's a reduced form. So that's the first thing I taught. Well, the first thing is number one, it's less androgenic than testosterone, so it shuts down your testosterone production, but it doesn't supplant it. Number one, right?
Yeah.
Number two, you get a reduced form because of the reduction. That's a chemical process where you get even a further a weaker androgenic substance. Boom, there's number two. And then number three, you get this progestational conversion, which is kind of similar to estrogen. And then that three that I was actually very simple, wasn't I? I didn't punch off the Mobius. 1, 2, 3. Wow. That effect, and other drugs have other steroids. They're progestonic too, like Tren. Yeah. But Tren is so goddamn androgenic that it negates all the other side effects. It just belittles them, and it goes into your brain, and it stimulates those male receptors, and you're horny as crap. There is my mechanism, my elucidation, if you will, on the biochemical process clinically of Deca.
So I've never done a Deca-only cycle. I know people have, and I don't think they were too bright.
Right. Yeah.
If you were doing a Deca-only cycle, would you experience, the typical heightened sex drive from testosterone, from Tren, from just about any steroid?
Well, what do you mean? But Deca only? Who
runs it? Trust me, there's some dumb people out there that will.
Well, you know what it is, Ron. I think they're dumb and they're inexperienced, so they just get a hold of Deca and they just inject it. And then now look, just like medicine doesn't read textbooks. Medical conditions don't read textbooks. Mm-hmm. What that means is it should shut everyone down, but you're on, doc, I'm taking Deca and I feel really good on it. Now, what is that? I haven't heard that. Out of the almost 4,000 patients I've interviewed since 2003, we calculated I've interviewed almost 4,000 patients. So from all those numbers, how many guys have told me, I take Deca, only Deca, and I feel great? Maybe on my hand. And you know what that is? It's bullshit. Because they're just bullshitting me. They're not, I don't think it's true, and I'm calling out the guys, not the names. These are guys, I don't know, from 10 years ago. Yeah. And I just think they're not telling the full truth. And I think they may start with Deca and they feel okay. But who's going to end up feeling okay on Deca 3 or 4 or 6 months later, not to mention 6 weeks later?
I mean, from a standpoint of pure utility, I think Deca by itself probably does do a decent job of, helping you gain muscle strength, because so many times when, again, athletes in other sports test positive for steroids, it's nandrolone that shows up, because it's got the metabolites stay in your system for almost a year. So that makes sense. But I'm just thinking most other steroids, the issue that you have, sexual issues, or when you stop taking them and you're in that funky stage where your body's hopefully coming back. Obviously, guys it ain't never coming back for me, but if you're a younger guy, they will experience that time where they're trying to do all the HCG and Clomid and avoid that happening. But Deca's that unique in that you can be, I don't know how long it takes. It's probably an individual thing, but a few weeks into a Deca-only cycle, you'd be basically impotent, wouldn't you?
It's true, Ron. I mean, I've interviewed thousands of men and they say, Doc, wow. They come in, it's almost like the chief complaint, Deca. I've seen this hundreds of times. They're ignorant. They're newbies. This goes back to the dawn of time, which is the internet, 1990s, when I remember the guys coming in 2005, where the internet just came out within 10 years, and they were like, Doc, so I didn't know about Brosa, we didn't know. So I got a hold of Deca. Maybe they ended up in Mexico because it's those single injection, those and that seems like so common back.
The veterinary stuff is very easy to find there and pretty cheap too. That's
right. So everyone knows it. So I'm just going back before Operation Gear Grinder. Remember that? So it's like
Big Brother.
Whatever. This is history. This is great history. So it's like, guys, it seems like they went to Mexico. They didn't get, they didn't get patted down. They came back with a bunch of Deca. They even did it in Mexico, hanging out for a week on vacation. They felt phenomenal in the beginning. Increased sex drive. because it's shaking up your system, and you're just getting an increase mostly. But then within weeks, within days, maybe a week, 2 weeks, within a few weeks, guys have come to me and said, "Doc, is suicidal or suicidal? Just that thing down there is doing absolutely nothing. It's because of that triphasic, that really triple play." Where it's very less androgenic than testosterone. The metabolite compound is even less androgenic, and then you get the progestinic side effects. There's nothing more to say.
So the bro science guys say to avoid this happening, if you're going to use Deca, you have to use twice the amount of testosterone.
It's amazing.
And so nobody's using less than 500 milligrams of Deca a week. That's a bare minimum.
What, Reeves? Are you serious?
Oh yeah. What have you heard? What do people come to you saying they're using?
I'm just the anabolic. I thought it was like 100, 200
a day.
Wow.
No,
wow.
I mean, a very, very typical dose of Deca for the week is 500 to 800 or 500 to 1,000.
Holy.
So supposedly, to avoid Deca dick, the bro science guys tell you got to use twice as much test. So if you're doing 800 or 1,000 milligrams of Deca a week, now you got to do 1,600 to 2,000 milligrams of testosterone. That's a lot of gear.
I thought, again, boy, it's even the anabolic doc learns. I mean, I just thought it was like guys are taking like 200 to 400 of Deca, and then obviously like 800, 600 to 800 of test, and then other stuff.
The only thing people take 200 to 400 is tren.
God, how strong that test Deca combination is an old powerlifting. That's an old powerlifting combo.
I mean, bodybuilders back in the day, that was like the gold standard. People used to say, if you can't grow on test and Deca, you're not going to grow from anything.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's very handy. It's a great drug for athletes, for bodybuilders, for professional athletes, all kinds of people. But this would make anyone think twice. So of course, meatheads being meatheads, they want to keep using it anyway. And if they were to try to remedy this by taking more drugs, which of course that's what every meathead would think would come to mind, which is, what drugs can I take to counteract?
Yeah.
If they were using ED drugs, if they were using Viagra, Cialis, Levitra, would that counteract this Deca dick?
No, because Deca dick is a brain issue. It's not those drugs, the Viagra, Cialis, Levitra, Stendra. Those are the four. They're all the same class called phosphodiesterase inhibitor, and they all work in the corpus cavernosum in the vasculature of the meat of the penis for they really massively increase nitric oxide, which that's an erection. Yeah. So those drugs are for men that have really they have cardiac disease. Men that get older, they're endothelial. This is what I'm doing for men. They get it. They come in with testosterone and sex, and I get to work on the heart because they're all related. So when you looked at my sex video, my last video I put up before Deca, the Deca dick, it's about where I elucidated how steroids, on and off steroids, how it causes sexual. Again, I have these epiphanies, and I put it all together.
So there's really nothing that can counteract this phenomenon of Deca dick.
So if you watch the video, Ron, so I talked about something that, and I don't even know. I until I study for these videos, I go, oh, that kind of makes sense, and I start putting things together that I didn't even realize I knew from all the history, all the histories I take. Yeah. So when you take, now Matt, think about it. You ready for this? You ready for some thinking? Okay.
Go for it.
Testosterone converts to DHT by 5-alpha reductase. Okay. So testosterone to DHT and DHT drugs, everyone knows DHT is more androgenic than testosterone, correct?
That's the one that's responsible for hair loss for the most
Correct.
part. Yeah.
Correct. So, but DHT drugs, that's a whole class of drugs, right? So DHT is super androgenic. And it's anabolic. So in your central nervous system, not to mention the hair and those acne and those androgenic symptoms, so test goes to DHT by this enzyme, 5-alpha reductase, and remember, for test to DHT, you're going from androgenicity from here to here. With this compound, which I didn't even realize this, you're going from here, and then this 5-alpha reductase converts it into another metabolite that's even less androgenic. So you understand that? So if you use a 5-alpha reductase blocker, the model typically is testosterone to DHT. You're going to go from dihydro, it's nandrolone, to the dihydro. You're going to get the reduced form that's actually you're going to remove this less androgenic compound, or transfer where it's converting to this compound, and it's always converting, to determining how much in the system, and so therefore you're going to actually block. It actually does the reverse of going from testosterone to DHT. You're going to actually keep just the parent nandrolone compound, which is more androgenic than the converted compound, the reduced compound, dihydronandrolone.
So the solution is to take a DHT blocker drug?
No one's going to do it, and Llewellyn's book talked about it. It's incredible. I mean, this is like, you got to really get your head around this stuff. That's why I love the thinking of this stuff. So it's one of the only times, and again, bro science guys, PhD guys, biochemistry guys, Bill Llewellyn himself, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm a clinical guy in the streets, but I have to rely on this, these guys. This is one of the only cases where you use a DHT blocker to make something more androgenic. Understand that?
Yeah.
So, but no one is going to go and let's take Deca and let's take a DHT. Of course, there's always someone that's done some of these stuff.
Well, now that you're saying it, I bet a bunch of people will look,
That's okay. So don't try it at home. So disclaimers are up everywhere for my mother. Okay, so for everyone. Yeah. So it's like, DHT, nandrolone compound, decadurabolin, blocking it from converting by this 5-alpha reductase enzyme, so it doesn't become even weaker. So you block it. So overall, you just get a more androgenic drug. Who's going to buy Deca, take finasteride or dutasteride, which is a DHT 1 and 2 blocker? Who's going to do this and say, now I can feel better because I'm actually going to be more androgenic because I'm blocking the conversion to a weaker androgenic compound, so my brain feels better. So you know what they're going to do? But you could. Does it make
the Deca less potent in what the Deca is supposed to do for your muscle building goals?
You know why? I also found out, which I forgot about. There's no 5-alpha reductase enzyme in skeletal muscle.
So, would this not work, or would this work?
It wouldn't affect skeletal muscle. It's not. It's for the brain, for the central nervous system, not for the skeleton. It just there's no. So and my colleague, the guy at Harvard, that we're always trying to. I think we're the only two anabolic docs really, apart from Dr. T. Yeah. We're the guys, but he's like an academic guy. The guy at Harvard, Dr. Bashane. He's written all the articles. With me, I write the papers and the articles, but he's done some real studies. He's a really incredible guy up there at Boston. The men's health division. He's an endocrinology expert up there. Yeah. So if you look for someone that he did a study years ago that did they did a placebo studied. They gave different levels of testosterone and DHT blockers, and he checked the leg strength, and he found out he was probably the guy that discovered it, but there's always someone else that probably discovered it before him. He's famous for it. That DHT blockade does work in the central nervous system, but it didn't affect skeletal muscle.
So, would the finasteride is a DHT blocker, correct?
Yeah.
So
DHT2.
Okay, so if you were running
1 and 2.
If you're running test, Deca, and finasteride, does that mean you wouldn't get Deca?
It would lessen it.
Okay. Well, there you go, everybody. Just I don't need disclaimers. I'm not a doctor.
But the interesting thing, Ronnie, this really is. When doctors are watching this, which guys in Norway, there's a man from Norway and Sweden, and guys are joining. Thank you guys from all over the world, man. Yeah, baby. Yeah, doctors are coming. Doctors are calling. We're doing it, Ron. And thank you to Steve Bleckman for giving us the platform to do it upon. I do appreciate it. This is the 10th year of the Anabolic Doc.
Wow.
Coming up this summer.
Another question I have about that is because Deca does stay in the system a very, very long time.
Very long time.
Does it have a negative impact on your erectile function for a long time after?
Absolutely. It's got that long. So it's got that long ester. It's got this very long squirrely ester that they put, and I discuss it in when I talk about the structural properties. We didn't elucidate it this time because my editor Alex is so brilliant, but he's not a chemist, and he was kind of like, "Ooh, doc, this one is a tough one. Nandrolone to dihydronandrolone to the reduced for." I said, Alex, we got to keep moving, buddy. Stay away from that because we don't. The last thing we want is some douchebag, say, "No, I got doc, I got him. That's the wrong compound ester."
Oh, they love to bust you on like a little technical. Ha ha!
Got him.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's because of this long ester that makes it leach out. This is why testosterone suspension is quick, and that's probably a cheating drug. I don't want to give any more information, right? I mean, testosterone suspension is just quick and in and out.
Trust me, like very few people watching this could ever even get their hands on it.
I mean, I'm just saying.
I've only seen it once in my life, ever.
Wow, I've never even. I mean, guys, I remember the powerlifting days where they were, they would do the right before they lift and stuff because it was so fast and painful, right? Painful,
and the crystals would get jammed up in the needle and all kinds of. It just seemed like a nasty drug.
But it's because of that long-acting, super long. They're called nandrolone esters. They were produced very early, late 50s, and that's because it converts. Remember, it converts into that other compound, and those compounds. I'm not a biochemist. They stick around. They can be detected. Some of the longest in anabolic steroids, right? Yeah. So they're like 3 months later, like you could still get busted on decadurabolin.
So this seems like we're really down on Deca, everybody, because the only way to counteract it would be either take a shitload of testosterone compared to how much or add finasteride in there, which probably has its own side effects, I imagine.
Yeah.
It's probably not the most harmless drug in the world.
Nope.
So, there's a lot of steroids out there. I would probably I don't think too many people are doing the longer version, the decanoate version. I hear a lot of people now are on the shorter acting.
Yeah.
I wonder if it has a lesser negative impact. I wonder if it doesn't affect the erection process quite as badly. That's something. Some of the bro scientists comment down. Put it in the comment sections, guys. We have no idea. We're always soliciting.
Ron, how about the other amazing piece educationally about decadurabolin for the joints? How about that one?
Oh yeah, I mean that's why a lot of people will take it because there's, like I said, there's 30 different steroids you can choose from, but that's the only one that does have a really long-standing reputation. A lot of anecdotal evidence. Have there ever been any studies?
So here's the thing. There probably has been, and I think Dr. T should help us on this. So when I read into that, for years have always heard it's synovial joints. It actually, through aldosterone modulation and anti-cortisol effects, so anti-inflammatory effects, and it works directly into that tissue directly by increasing the liberation, really, of that hyaluronic derivative, which is the lubrication, and it does something with quantitative increase in the collagen synthesis and qualitative with the cross fiber tensile strength. And I'm done. There's nothing more to say because I researched it and I would love to have comments because I did a lot of work on that and I was just trying to figure, scratching my brain on that. And George added the puffiness doesn't come from the estrogen. It's progestonic, and kind of estrogenic. I call it progestonic and estrogenic. Yeah. But then he said it increases aldosterone. Oh, okay. And George is so smart and so good. Only other doctor in the world that I feel that's up on my level with this stuff, it's George and Dr. T, and he's right. And I wondered, how can it not be estrogenic, but we're getting puffiness and increases in hypertension? And he reminded me that there's a pathological state called Conn syndrome where you have hyperaldosteronism. It's in your adrenals where you have liberation of aldosterone, and you need it for life. But if you have too much, it causes edema and it causes actually hypokalemia, where your potassium goes down. I've diagnosed 2 cases in my life in almost 20 years only.
Wow.
Secondary hypertension. It was really incredible. You know, I picked it up. I just was lucky, and we saved their life because we had a urologist remove a woman and a woman I diagnosed it on, and a man, and we removed carefully did studies, and we removed at Hartford Hospital by Dr. Schickman, who's a great surgeon here, urological surgeon, removed the tumor that we discovered only because of hypertension, resistant hypertension, and hypokalemia. And I picked that up. It's called Conn syndrome. So, now, you know, you think of Cushing syndrome. This is what when you're an intern, this is pretty complicated, right?
Yeah.
This is just what all day long. This is why being the anabolic metabolic doc, you got to be an internist all day long. I'm using my internal medicine skills, guys, and I'm looking for doctors to come under my training. We have 2 coming in, and they have to first go under very rigorous internal medicine training programs. I don't care if it's the United States, anywhere, but you know, you need to understand, because look what I just said. If you don't understand the basis of medicine, you're not going to be able to be an anabolic or a metabolic doc.
All right, well, doctor, I know you have a patient coming up in a couple minutes. I don't want to keep them waiting. Thank you for explaining why Deca Dick happens. Everybody, it's great for your joints, but it is bad for your heart-on. So,
Ron,
think about it, guys.
Do you think it keeps going? How long can you use Deca clinically where it just keeps helping the joints?
I would imagine, like you said, everything's probably got a point where the body adjusts to it and it stops. So I don't know how long, but I can't imagine Deca would always give you that benefit.
So you don't know this from your experience in the streets with.
I've never done it for more than 16 weeks at a time, and that's a pretty long time, to be honest.
You really feel it helps you, clinic? I mean,
a little bit, but you know what? If you've got torn labrum, torn rotator cuff, your cartilage is gone, there's no steroid, there's nothing in the world, PRP or something, but there's no steroid that's going to magically take your pain away.
I know, I agree.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, doctor. Thank you, doctor, as always. Make sure you check out his websites, metabolicdoc.com, anabolicdoc.com, and his YouTube channel, Anabolic Doc, where the videos are much more scientific and make a lot more sense than the ones me and him do. So thanks for watching, everybody. Appreciate it. We'll see you next time.